And our special guest today is Mark Divver from New England Hockey Journal. Also does some stuff for NHL.com, and he's really knowledgeable about the prospects. That's what we want to talk about today, Mark. Thanks for joining us. And
Glad to
you
be
know what?
here.
In the thing about, I guess I'm just going to start right out. What are your thoughts? Because we have our own thoughts. What are your thoughts on the general young player development when it comes to the Bruins organization?
Well, they've traded a lot of picks in recent years, trying to, maximize their postseason runs. So, I mean, it's no secret they don't have a lot of prospects. They haven't. They've given up picks in trades, and the guys that they have drafted, are not necessarily high round, or the kids in Providence, not necessarily high round picks. So, they're not exactly banging on the door to get promoted to the NHL. A couple of them are, but the prospect pool is shallow. I don't think that's any surprise to anybody that follows the Bruins.
No, it isn't a surprise, and we've hammered them a little bit for that. But in your opinion, some of the guys that are in Providence, specifically Georgii, Merkulov, and Fabian Lysell, how do you think they've been playing this year, and do they deserve a chance to show what they can do in Boston at this point in time?
Well, I think they both will get a chance, whether they deserve it or not, at some point between now and the end of the year. I think the Bruins need to find out or get a better look or a better gauge on what these guys might be able to bring down the road, whether that's this year, next year, whenever. I'm surprised, and I'm not the only one. I'm surprised that Merkulov hasn't gotten a shot here, especially since he's so good on the power play, and the Bruins Boston has been so bad on the power play. It's kind of a head scratcher as to why he hasn't gotten an opportunity more than the 3 games that he got earlier this year, or 4, but not much of a look. But I think he'll get a look at some point because he has earned it. I think Lysell's a little bit different. I'm not sure he's earned it, but I think he will get a shot. He's a first round pick. He's someone that they need to know whether he's going to be able to get up and make it up top. His play in Providence, it's just, I said this the other day, that the mistakes he's making the same mistakes over and over again, which is discouraging in that it's his 3rd year as a pro. And some of these mistakes are the same things he was making it's the same turnovers and, trying to do too much by himself. These are things that were evident in year 1, and now we're in year 3, and they're still cropping up at times. There are times when he plays well, when he's, plays more of a team game, doesn't try to do too much. The zone entries where he tries to beat 4 guys, I mean, it's just, you're not going to do it. I don't know if he was able to do that in junior hockey. I really don't, but I know you can't do it in the American League, and he keeps trying to do it. So there's kind of a disconnect there, it feels like, between what the coaching staff is telling him that he needs to do and what he actually does. But having said that, I think they will take a look at him because they need to know, is this a guy we still have hopes for, or should we give up on that? I think at this point, they still have hopes for him. So I think we'll see him between now and April.
Now, Cam Neely talked about how you have to outscore your mistakes, which I thought was an interesting comment because there's a lot of veterans on the team right now who aren't outscoring their mistakes.
No.
And that's something I think as a young player, if I'm a young player and I hear that quote, I think, well, geez, Georgii Merkulov last year, you get like 6 minutes and make a mistake and sit for the half, the second, and all the third. And I would think to myself, like, wait a minute, like I make one mistake and I get the plug pulled on me. And these other guys are making mistakes all over the ice, and that doesn't happen. Now I know that veterans get obviously a lot of leeway, but in this case, it must be very frustrating for a young player to have the management have that kind of mindset when they almost expect the young players to play perfect hockey.
Yeah, it probably is discouraging, but until you give them a chance to make those mistakes, well, what are we doing here? Why are they not? If you call a guy up and he turns the puck over 3 or 4 times and just doesn't look good, then okay, that's one thing. But to kind of preemptively say, hey, you can't make mistakes. Well, that doesn't seem like it seems backwards. It seems backwards.
Yeah, we've been saying that quite a bit. That I think they do kind of handle the development of the young guys backwards. It's like the veterans have all the leeway, even though they're making mistakes, and the rookies, make one mistake and they get benched for it. It really should probably be closer to the other way around, whereas the rookies need to grow and learn. And how can they learn if every time they make a mistake they're getting benched?
And it's those two guys, and Matt Patra does not play a mistake-free game.
No,
he turns the puck over, like young players do, and once in a while, not so much. I don't think since he rejoined the team, but he's not they don't staple him to the bench when he makes a couple of mistakes. They put him back out there and try and work your way out of that. So I don't know. It's a head scratcher why Merck hasn't gotten a shot, and even Lysell, the fact that they could have taken a look at him more than they have. They gave him that one game. Even in that game, he turned the puck over in the neutral zone and sat out a couple of shifts after that. I mean, they were right on that. They jumped right on that turnover. And I wouldn't say I think he was okay in that game. I think he helped. His play led to a goal, I think, on his first shift, and that's great. But overall in the game, he wasn't. He didn't make a case for that he had to be in the lineup the next night, and they sent him back. So, but like I said, I think we'll see him at some point between now and the end of the season.
Mark Kastelik was signed 3-year deal by the Bruins, which I thought I didn't love just because I don't love the term on a fourth liner. But what does that say about some of the guys like Riley Duran and Trevor Kuntar and John Farinacci, guys who are probably projected as bottom 6 or fourth line players? And does that say that they aren't real keen on them? Are they going to be AHL lifers, or how do you think their development's coming on?
Well, what I think that's saying is that those guys are not even close to being NHL ready. They are miles from being ready.
Right.
Kastelik, he is what he is, a fourth liner. He's an NHL player at this point. Mm-hmm. Those 3 guys you mentioned, they're not. They may get there at some point, but they're not there now. Because Kastelik does things that those guys don't do. The fighting and the physical play. Farinacci, Duran, and Kuntar. That's not who they are. They're not going to fight some of the heavyweights that Kostelic has taken on. So they're kind of in a different niche, I would say, than Kostelic, but they have a ways to go, and a ways to go to even be considered for a call up, I think. And they may, I wouldn't count on all of them ever getting a call up. One or two of them might, but all three, I wouldn't go that far at this point.
So, turning attention now to the defense a little bit, the Bruins have been banged up a little bit with Charlie McAvoy out and Hampus Lindholm out, and now Brandon Carlo has the illness. And Michael Callahan's filled in pretty admirably, and Osterley was kind of a NHL, AHL guy. But there's a couple of guys at Providence that we're interested in. Frederic Brunet is one, and Jackson Edward is the other. How has their development come along, and do you see those guys potentially getting a shot at the NHL next season?
I think it would be a stretch to expect that next season. I don't think either one of them is far enough along for that to happen. Brunet has taken a step this season. He's improved quite a bit. A year ago, at this time, he was just starting to gain traction. He had a slow start, as 20-year-old kids do in the American Hockey League. It's a tough league.
Mm-hmm.
They're playing against men. They're not playing against teenagers anymore, and it's tough. But he's taken a step this season. He's been, I feel like there was somewhat of a misperception about what he is coming out of junior hockey, where he put up a lot of numbers. He's not an offensive defenseman. He's not a shutdown defenseman. He's a two-way guy somewhere in the middle, having a good year in Providence, as a two-way player. But he's not I don't see him ever playing on the power play or anything like that. He can play on the penalty kill, but he's made strides. Jackson Edwards just getting started, just taking baby steps. I didn't watch him a lot the only time I saw him in London was in the Memorial Cup.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently there's this idea out there among the fan base, I think, people who watch the OHL, that he's a tough guy. Boy, I'm sure not seeing that. He's playing against men, and he's not scaring anybody. Nobody. Now, down the road, can he develop into kind of a physical guy, crease clearing guy? Although you don't see crease clearing guys anymore.
No, I can't really get away with that now.
You get penalties, right? Unless I guess you could call Zadorov a crease clearing guy.
Yeah,
yeah, and he gets penalized.
Yeah.
Jackson's got a ways to go. He's I think he's not in the lineup every night. It's like every other game he plays, but they're bringing him along, and I think they think he will play at the NHL level. But he's going to have to put in some time.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Michael Callahan. I mean, you look at that game last night. He was the best defending defenseman that they had in the lineup. He just defends. You can say that he's limited. He's not. He's not going to give you much offense, but boy, he defends. He does. And what's he? 25 years old. He played in college, 4 years in college, and now I don't know. This is his third year, maybe in Providence. It takes time.
Yeah.
The two guys we talked about previously are both, 20, 21 years old. They're going to have to put in their time too before they are really guys that you would say going into training camp, hey, this guy has a shot. He might be able to do it. They're not there yet. I don't see them. I don't see that being a possibility next season. I'd love to be proved wrong, but I just don't see it right now.
Yeah.
Now, Michael DiPietro's had a really good year. Past Brandon Bussey,
sure has.
All-Star,
Yep.
really coming along, and got the call up. Didn't get a game, but he got the call up recently. Now he's a Group 6 UFA coming up. What do you think the plan is for him? Is he, could they potentially dangle Korpisalo at the end of the year and say, you know what, we can give DiPietro a chance, or where do you see him fitting?
I would say that if they're smart, they're talking right now about an extension for him so that he doesn't get to Group 6.
Right.
And, another year in Providence next year. I wouldn't, I don't know if Korpisalo is tradable with his contract.
Right. True.
And he's been good this year, but I mean, you look at what the goalie market is, and I don't know why anyone would come calling to the Bruins to say we gotta give us Korpi. We gotta have Korpi. He's a good NHL backup. That's what he is. And overpaid in at this point in Boston. Yeah, you could say that, but he's reliable. You know what you're getting. He's been good this year. I think that trade's worked out well for the Bruins. DiPietro, I'm not sure I think he's a kind of a classic number 3 goalie in an organization.
Yeah.
The guy you have in Providence, can he come up and play some games if needed? Yeah, he probably can. But I think right now it would be a stretch to plug him into a backup role in the NHL and think that you're all set at that position.
What do you think happens with Brandon Bussey at the end of the year?
Well, I think as much as I would like to see him stay with the organization, because I like him very much personally. He's a great kid. That business at the beginning of the year with he's starting. Oh, it looks like he's starting the year in the NHL. He won the second, the backup job, and then the rug gets pulled out from under him. Not only by Swayman signing, but they bring in another guy from Vancouver that, another goalie. So I think that has, cast a shadow on his year this year. He hasn't been the same. The last couple games he's been good, kind of back to his old form. But I think that business at the start of the year really shook him and really, not shattered his confidence, but shook his confidence. And it's been months now trying to rebuild that. So frankly, I expect him to move on at the end of the year and get an NHL contract someplace else.
Right.
And maybe that's what he needs at this point, as much as I would like to see him stick around.
So to recap, there's a huge gap between the Bruins roster and their prospect pool. So what do you think? I mean, what do they do going forward if there's really not a ton, or if at all anything, in the pipeline?
Well, they got to make smarter decisions in free agency. The Zadorov and Lindholm. Let's face it; those two signings to this point have been a disaster. A disaster.
Yeah. Well,
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're essentially paying $8 million for a third line center right now.
Yeah.
So, that's not exactly what you're looking for.
No, not at all.
Lindholm.
I think you have to be smart in. Let's face it. There's a limited amount of guys out there, free agents, that you can sign and think that they're going to be difference makers. Those guys just aren't out there, right?
Right.
They're not, and so they're going to have to be smarter. They're going to have to, I think they need to rebuild the prospect pool, and by actually drafting people, right, instead of trading picks.
Yeah.
It's my feeling that they kind of need to I'm not saying they need to sell at the deadline and clean house and get rid of this guy and that guy. What they need to do is make some smart trades where if they think Trent Frederic is not going to sign with them, then you got to trade him. And what do you get for him? I don't know. You get draft picks or a draft pick, maybe a prospect, somebody's, distressed asset from another team, that maybe a guy who's didn't quite turn out the way that team thought when they drafted him, but maybe Boston thinks they can get more out of him. So I would think a strategy like that where, stockpile some picks and make sure that you make good selections. I think the 2015 draft comes up all the time, right? It's 10 years ago now, for God's sake, but they're paying the price for that and for trading picks in the subsequent years. That's why they're in the spot they're in. So smarter trades, smarter signings. I think they should be looking 2 years down the road. This business about we want to contend every year. Well, I want to win the lottery too, but it ain't happening.
Don't we all?
Yeah.
Kind of take a step back and, I don't think they have enough good players that they can, I think, target a couple of years from now and maybe, kind of rebuild the roster with an eye toward that instead of, damn it, we got to contend for the Stanley Cup this year, next year.
Right.
That's just not realistic.
And that's when poor decisions come.
That's when poor decisions come. Exactly right. And the fan base doesn't want to hear it.
Right.
The fans, let's face it, they're spoiled. Especially, I can say this, or maybe I can't, but I'm an old guy.
Yeah.
The young fans, they have no idea what how bad it could be. Okay, they have no idea because the Bruins have been good, So I mean, the fans kicking and screaming about being Stanley Cup contenders. That's just not realistic.
No.
Every year.
Right.
It's been pretty good the last few years, and
sure.
Now I think they're going to pay the price here. They are paying the price.
Sure. Well, Mark, we appreciate the insight and your time. It's great to have you on, and we love following you on X. You gave us a good insight.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Take care of yourself.
Thanks a lot, Mark.
You too.
All right, it was Mark Divver who gives us some insight on the prospects. Smitty, just to kind of recap, what is your take on that? My take is this: like, the prospect pool is even further away from being helpful than people even want to admit. You know what I'm saying? Like, we knew it wasn't great, and everybody else tells us it's not great.
Yeah.
But still, there was a couple of guys in there that we thought, why isn't this guy getting a chance? Or why isn't this guy getting a chance?
Yeah.
Well, it seems as though it's rightfully so that they're just
I mean, Mark sees
those
guys. He sees those guys all the time, and he would know better than anyone. So if the Riley Durans and the Trevor Kuntars and the John Farinacci's, aren't getting a look, he says it's because it's deserved, and he would know. He's been around the game a ton for a long time, and it kind of makes it dawn on you. There's a realistic that it's it's not great. We didn't think it was great, but it might be worse than we thought.
Sure.
Which doesn't make you feel good about the thing.
No.
For the future. So, it really does make you think, do the Bruins really have to be smart here and focus on, the future and selling off guys that aren't going to be part of your your future, or you can't re-sign them, you have to look to get rid of those guys and start bringing some assets in to kind of rebuild this thing. Stop trading away first-round picks, for a team that's unlikely to contend in the next couple of years. Do you reconsider maybe trading a guy like Brad Marchand because, you're not going to win a cup while he's, the last 2-3 years here? Does that make you rethink that thing and try to bring some, new blood and some prospects and picks into the organization? Like, they have a lot of work to do.
They do.
A lot of work to do. He's right. Like 2015 kind of killed them because that was 3 NHL players that you missed on. You got one and a fourth of NHL players out of that. And now the guy's not on your team anymore, and you signed a guy for more money who's producing less.
Right. And lost the other guy for no assets.
Lost the other guy for no assets. So you're not really doing well overall when it comes to managing your assets, managing the cap, bringing in prospects, finding the right prospects, picking guys for your style of play. Like, they're doing it all wrong. So to me, that really says that a change should be made at the top. And we've talked about it before, but unless they miss the playoffs, that change isn't coming.
Not coming.
So really, it's time for them to miss the playoffs. That change needs to come. They need to reset the whole thing. And then, like he said, maybe focus on a few years out. You start building for a few years out. You get rid of some contracts that are going to be up in the next year or two, recoup some assets that you can maybe trade for people or picks or however you want to do it. But come up with a plan for, 2026 or 7 instead of, trying to focus on the next year, because it's just not going to happen.
No. And you know what? Thursday night, when the Winnipeg Jets come in, Kyle Connor gives you another reminder of the 2015 NHL draft and his 29 goals, whatever the hell he has this year. One of the really good young stars out there.
Yeah.